Outside of Glen Rock area,
Okay.
so he may or may not contact you.
I'm ready. We're ready.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Writers Roundtable hosted by the York County History Center. Thanks to all of you who showed up today on this gorgeous summer evening, as well as York County History Center for hosting this amazing program. We are a group of writers and researchers and lovers of history that get together and share our stories and share our insights and our pet projects, frankly, to help each other out. So we meet every quarter, and this is a very, very friendly group. So if you are online, we'd love to have you here in person. It is frankly a cohort. It's a group where we can share ideas and bounce ideas off of one another, sometimes be critical, but at the end, we all grow. So for those of you who are watching online, we're going to have Nicole come up here in a couple of minutes and go over the History Center's updates. Then we'll have Jeremy Young come up and talk about Wrightsville, and that'll be, of course, our main center stage for tonight. He will last about 45 minutes, but then we hope you hang out afterwards. We're going to have our Writers Roundtable portion where people will actually share out some of the research that we're working on. So no further ado, here is Nicole Smith with the York County History Center.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for coming out this evening. Just a couple of quick announcements, which I know I always do this, but the webinar is being recorded and will be available on the York County History Center YouTube channel tomorrow. A few things coming up at the History Center. Our book blast is back. It is actually our member night is this evening, and it runs tomorrow night and Saturday if you're interested at our Agricultural and Industrial Museum. Great book sale fundraiser. Then on June 8th, our Genealogy Society, the South Central Pennsylvania Genealogy Society. The speaker is Jamie Norpel. Norpel, yeah. Norpel. I did it right. Jamie Norpel and Jim McClure, speaking about peach bottom and the Welsh and slate quarrying, and that just sounds really exciting. On June 13th, we're going to have our first organ recital on the 1804 Tannenberg organ, a free concert here on Friday night, June 13th, if you're interested. And then on June 21st, we have our Date with History fundraising event, which is called Lafayette's Bicentennial Ball. So if you're interested in fancy dress and an auction and all kinds of good fundraising stuff and food, please come to that. Thank you very much. We do have a sign-up sheet. If you don't have our email newsletter, please sign up. And please visit yorkhistorycenter.org for more information. Thank you.
Okay, and now without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jeremy Young, who is our speaker for tonight. He is a volunteer historian at Historic Wrightsville Incorporated. He works as a kindergarten teacher at Kanahawkee Elementary School in the room where he attended kindergarten. And in his free time, he pretends to be a farmer by taking care of his flocks of chickens and geese, numerous small animals, his cats. He has a 50-pound tortoise, 3 pigs, and 2 corgis. So, Jeremy, come on up here.
Thank you. So we will get started here about telling Wrightsville's story in the right way. Tonight is it's like twofold. We have some of Wrightsville history, but also how Historic Wrightsville Incorporated works to promote and preserve that history. So first, who is this guy? Who am I? I am a kindergarten teacher. I am a pretend farmer. There's nothing productive about my farm whatsoever. If I had an accountant, they would go crazy. It's just an endless money pit of animal food. I've done some theater work at the Belmont Theater, and I am a volunteer historian, which is nothing like Indiana Jones. I do like acquiring things, but it just doesn't usually take me that kind of trouble to get them. Am I an expert? No. Absolutely not. I am a very broad, shallow puddle of a lot of information that comes at me for many people and I try to file that as quickly as I can. So just so you know, no, I am not a Wrightsville expert. I'm saying that from the get-go. Okay, we're gonna do some different things here. I did attend a couple of these. I am a kindergarten teacher, and one of the things that they do, and I do know this, I know what it's like to be in your shoes. However, unlike in-service days, you're more interested in the topic than I might be at a certain topic at in-service. But we are going to do some things where we talk to people around us, because that's important. So what I'd like you to do is turn and talk to somebody near you and just answer this phrase. History is. Go ahead. I'll give you about a minute.
Well, I know we already talked about all that. Yeah, I think it's local. Yeah.
History is something else.
Okay.
You never know where you're going to wind up.
History is what people write about the past.
So, yeah, it's, yeah, I think that's, the use of it. Yeah, like, locally,
I've
certainly
spent time
in
being there. I've about
Can be
the next
worldwide,
crazy year.
so.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it takes sometimes.
Tell me in a second.
Trails sleep.
Yeah, I like the tangent. Start talking about history, start talking to Tom.
This conversation
I
as
didn't know
soon
about
as
the
you
Native
can.
American. Yeah,
Did you go? You have to go.
And now we're going to
I've
share,
not been there.
not share, we're going to share out loud. So if anybody just wants to blurt out what history, what you came up history is, go ahead.
Exciting.
Exciting. Well, come on.
A headache.
Reflect. Okay, what'd you say?
I said a headache.
Headache? Anybody else?
The foundation for
Found-
everything that's to come.
Anybody else?
Total disorganization.
To disorganization, is it past, present, future, to disorganization? All of your answers are correct. History is many things. I'm gonna look at a couple things here. It's dynamic. I'm guilty of this. I used to associate history with that textbook, and I bet you can picture the map that was in the front side of that textbook that you had and probably stared at during a lecture. I remember my history textbook. I was a good student. I'm sorry, history professors, and teachers, if you're watching, sometimes it just glazed over me because it wasn't relevant to me at the time. It was dates and names. That's what history was to me. It was dates and names. And I'm going to say this many times. I am horrible with dates and names. That's why I have Google. Okay. I know important ones, but not everyone. It's more than dates, and it's a puzzle. Oh, is it a puzzle? And the puzzle changes, the pieces change. There's no picture in the box. I mean, I grew up with George Washington, the cherry tree. Now I don't in Pilgrims. I we're black and white. In Plymouth, no Pilgrim had black and white on. It was a little disappointing when I went to Plymouth, and it changes. It changes as we change and we learn new things. So the next part of this, and I promise you're not going to be up and down all the time. It's like a beginning and end kind of thing. You have some Post-it notes in front of you, or on your hand, I should say. And I'd like you to write down on 2 or 3 Post-it notes, maybe 4. What do you think of when you think of Wrightsville? So write a couple things down, and this is a parking lot up here. That's why that crazy car is sliding in there. If you would add them to our parking lot, I'm just curious, what do you think of when you think of Wrightsville? And there are no wrong answers. So we'll do this for about 2 minutes. My goal is to stay on time. And because we're all different kinds of learners, if this is totally against what you believe in doing, I'm not going to be after you. Yeah, if you want to write a separate post-it, sometimes people like to write lots so that you all free for like that one topic. So it's very open that way. Thanks. If you're out of pens, I have some smelling markers. Just I'll know if you smell them because I'll see it in your nose.
What do you want us to do with the stickies?
If you can put them up here in this white piece of paper, or I can even come back and get them for you.
That's all right.
Oh, I didn't write very legibly.
That's okay. I teach you later.
I wrote for me and not you.
That's okay. It really is. I'm not grading penmanship.
How can you read it? That's the question.
I'm picking a couple out. This is one of those like fun times where I get to see my audience. Here, you can have my pen, it does work. I think it does. Maybe it's gonna, oh,
I use the one feet rule.
perfect.
I'm on to you. And manage.
Yes, you're right. I'm watching, and I did actually, I had that on my notes and didn't pay attention. I did get the teacher remote and blended during COVID, so please type anything you think about Wrightsville in there. I'm not trying to ignore you, I just forgot that I don't have a screen full of your little faces in front of me to remember that. So, I have a great small town, Gateway, New York County, burning the bridge during Civil War. End of railroad, New York Valley. The ferry, Susquehanna River, John Wright. Oh, you got the non-posted kind of that. Alright. I'm not usually a supply snob until it comes to post-it notes and crayons. I'm a post-it and Crayola kind of teacher.
You go through each day.
The river, the bridges, John Wright, the river town, Burning Bridge, Susquehanna River, Lower Susquehanna River Keepers, Veterans Memorial Bridge. You're starting to see the pattern. Okay, and this is one of the things that I like to do with people just to see what's in your head. I'm not shocked by this, but every now and again you do get a couple in there that I'm like, really? That makes you think like I never thought of that before, thinking of that primarily as Wrightsville. A community rich in history of both Black and white families. Excellent. So, at Historic Wrightsville Incorporated, we try to keep our museum historically accurate with the things people want to see, and also expose them to new material when we can. What you've posted here is very much what stays in like a permanent collection kind of way. So I put on the top 4 things people come to the museum to ask us about. Number 1, the burning of the bridge. Wrightsville's national claim to fame. I respect it like you wouldn't believe, but there is so much more for me than the burning of the bridge. Honestly, standing right here, if you're gonna shoot Civil War questions at me, I'm not your guy. Because so many people have done that I rely on their research so I can research other topics. I know the broad general, the scope of it. So at Historic Wrightsville, we do have a display in our museum, and we also have the Burning Bridge diorama. And that's open every Sunday and Wednesday. We'll get to that later. The second most common thing talked about, bridges. So this is just a shout out question. There's no humiliated for wrong answers. So if your answer is wrong, do not feel bad. How many bridges have spanned the Susquehanna River from Wrightsville to Columbia?
6.
We are a good crowd. We must be history people. 6 is the answer. So we have the first bridge, 1812 to 1832, destroyed by fire and ice on a low river day. You can see it south of the Route 30 bridge. You can see that, not it, you can see the rock formations underwater there. This is we have this plate on display, an artist, Bart, that came and from England and took some sketches back and engravings back. Here is a history mystery puzzle piece. He claims in his work that it's the first bridge. However, the time of his visits would tell us it's the second bridge. So at this point, we will never know until the right document comes up. Second bridge, 1834 to 1863. That's our most famous bridge destroyed by fire. You can see the towpath, which made that bridge extra special to us, the cantilever group added later. The third bridge, 1868 to 1896, and that was destroyed during a windstorm, and there are diaries that actually talk about that I think in the diaries they talk about like a typhoon kind of thing blew the bridge down. Fourth bridge, the Iron Bridge, 1897 to That's 1964, I apologize for that, I was in the 1800s that time. 1964, constructed in 21 days, so people watching at home, the slide is incorrect, that's 1964. Then we have the fifth bridge, dedicated November 11th, 1930, the Veterans Memorial Bridge, the 462 Bridge, my personal favorite bridge. I would like to say this because I was so disappointed when I found this out, so I'm going to disappoint somebody. There are no donkeys, horses, or people buried in that bridge. That was a very tough thing for me to learn about. My grandmother died for years. And then on November 20th, 1972, they dedicated the Wrightsville Bridge, Route 30 Bridge. So that's going to take us to number 3, the third most popular topic that people like to ask about, canals and railroads. So we have the Susquehanna and Tidewater Canal and the railroad. This is a stereoscopic view. The first train to come across Wrightsville, June 5th, 1897 at 11:32 a.m. However, the best knowledge I have, the last train crossed the bridge in March of 1958. Here is a photo of the canal, built between 1836 and 1840, connecting us with Havre de Grace. Probably the other big history idea that I was not prepared for. My father's family's Wrightsville. My Wrightsville last names are Hake, Livelsberger, and Young. They're about as Wrightsville as you can get. The rest of my family is Lower Windsor Township, Spiker and Thomas. So if you've ever had ice cream at Spiker's Dairy, that was my great-grandparents. I lost my train of thought with what his name is. That's something. Oh, I took Wrightsville for granted. I just went in. My grandparents lived where Half Nuts is. We just liked it because coming from the big town of Crayley, Wrightsville was really special. So I know, but I love my small town. I really do. So when I started volunteering at Wrightsville and I started noticing some trends, to think of Little Wrightsville as a transportation hub, blew my mind. Like such a big idea, a transportation hub in Wrightsville. I think the only thing we were missing throughout time was an airplane field. I mean, we had the trolley, you had the buses, you had so much, the train, the canal system is so rich in history there, just bringing people through and delivering goods. The fourth is family, home, and town interest. And we're really good, I think we're really good with the town interest part. Specific families and home, people do ask a lot, come in all the time. And it really does break my heart when they're like, my parents lived at 212 Walnut Street. Can you tell me about the house? And most times all I can really say is, I think it's brick. And I wish I knew more because what we collect, what we have is what people have given us there. My next thing is somebody with an animal or a fruit nickname or a vegetable nickname lived there. Like someone named Tomato lived in your house. I don't know Tomato's last name, but they live there. And I can probably find out. Now, most of the people I'm related to, that's the Wrightsville way. So I do try to reach out a little bit. But we have a lot of ephemera and objects in the museum of our businesses and churches. And then occasionally get some really good family treasures. So there are some Wrightsville people here, so I'm not going to I'm not going to ask you to please don't get the answers yet. I'm going to give some time for this. And one of the reasons I put this question on here is because I mentioned this before with history, why I'm not like Mr. Dates kind of thing, because a lot of things I can find right here. So where I can find it quickly until I do that a bunch of times, it's not in my memory. So what were the names of the two towns that incorporated in 1834 to form the borough of Wrightsville? If you do not know that answer, you can Google it. I'll give it about a minute.
Westphalia.
Westphalia was one. And Wrightsville, yeah. Yes. So if you're standing on, and that was another one of those early aha moments, and I think I was with Lisa, I think I was researching our first ghost tour, and you're like, it was 2 towns, I'm like, it was what? 2 towns, and then Westphalia, what? And then I found Westphalia Ham one time, and thought that was great. But Westphalia and Wrightsville, if you are standing on 462 and you're looking south, you're seeing what was Westphalia. The north side was Wrightsville, the north side, incorporated 1834, and then we do have 2 maps. Of one of Westphalia and one of Wrightsville on display right now, copies of the maps on display right now. So now, a little bit about historic Wrightsville Incorporated. There are 2, you see our museum on the left, the diorama on the right. Our organization was organized in 1975 in preparation for the celebration of our nation's 200th anniversary. The organization was incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit in 1983 to promote the interests of the community, to identify and preserve historic sites, and to promote community spirit by enriching the social, educational, and cultural life of Wrightsville Borough and the surrounding area. That's a mouthful in the last part, the Wrightsville Borough part. We try to focus on Wrightsville Borough, and it's not because we're being snotty about that or anything, or like, oh, we're Wrightsville, but most of the Wrightsville address is actually Lower Windsor Township, which has its own historical society, and Helm Township, which has its own historical society. So we've been coming to visit the bridges. Bridge number 6, we have a nice picture of it, but we really don't go into it too much because that's Helm Bridge. We had 5 other ones to talk about. So we try to give everybody their space there. Again, our past, organized in 1975, incorporated in 1973, and the Redmond family gave us our museum in 1987. That was John Redmond, former president of the York Water Company. His daughters gifted the museum to us after the parents' death. Early on, our early members really laid down a rich, hefty framework for us to build upon. The collection of artifacts. Benita Emenheiser was like a hound dog sniffing out what she could find, what she could get and get into the museum. Don Lehman with photos, trying to get everything. They organized events, they put things on the map. But as we know with history, just as in life, the only thing constant is change. So we still have Benita on board with us. She likes to tell me things when she wants to. So I try to catch her in a really sweet mood and maybe trim some hedges. And then I can get some information from her. She's a tough cookie, that girl. So what does it take to keep a museum running? So what I'd like you to do right now, just think anything to keep a museum running. So again, you've been sitting, turn and talk. And a line, please, chime in.
We need money, volunteers.
Yeah, money, volunteers, but you'll.
Yes.
We need people.
They do have.
Endowment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Money
what
that makes
boils down to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If you start accepting stuff, you run out of
Yeah.
space right away. So, we aren't gonna do that. This is a big building size. Yeah, you think about me.
Hey, I hear the
the
hum. So what do we take? I heard one common thing a lot of. And you need a lot of volunteers, money, people, artifacts, the building. Well, presently, our present is this. We have a 14-member board that organizes our group, our organization. We're supported by a membership of about 350 people and a very wonderful community. I can honestly say, and I have a fellow board member here, we always want more. That's never the problem of wanting more. But I don't remember a time in my tenure when we didn't have what we needed at the time. Somebody's always stepped up or we found a way. And that's a community, that's our community. It's a tight-knit community, and they are proud of their history. They really are proud of their history, and you can always see as a generation must hit a certain age, you start to see things of a certain decade come in droves. So what we used to think of is like when we think of getting artifacts, that early like Victorian stuff and that stuff that we think of in our heads that our great grandparents had as old is now, for me, it's becoming the stuff of my childhood because I'm not young anymore. I keep forgetting that I'm not as young as I used to, but I just get to keep the last name. So stuff is coming in out of attics, out of drawers, in boxes, and we are very blessed to have that. So we currently, that first image is for my friend Artie, who's constantly mowing. We have the buildings and grounds, the upkeep of the buildings and grounds, and it's expensive. It's expensive to keep the building historically correct. You know, wood is not the same as it used to be. It rots quickly, so it's very easy to have multiple $10,000+ repairs. So that, you're right, the money does matter. How do we get that? Well, we fundraise. And we fundraise, and we fundraise. And our fundraising has changed. It's changed for many reasons, but one, some of the best fundraisers are a lot of work. A lot of work. And we now, if you have even weighing out, is this worth the amount of money? Or can we do something else? Can we change to make things better for us and still give quality to our members in our community? A very hidden expense that I'll probably talk a little longer about than some people may be interested is this middle picture. Archiving and preserving and keeping things safe. Our other historian, I am going to embarrass, is in the room right now. We have very different skill sets and we're very different. We're very passionate about different sides of history, which gives us a nice yin and yang for the full picture. She took rooms of piles of stuff from the past, sorted it, and cataloged it electronically. And it was her passion, the passion had to be there because it's a volunteer position, and years at it. So I think, if I'm correct, you're seeing the end of those piles.
Beginning to.
Okay, we're beginning to see the end of the piles, but what that does first is that system, it's not static, it's a dynamic system. We know that we have to go back soon. But the first thing she did was come up with her own system of how we organize this. Businesses, schools, then getting the correct storage materials. I think the Gaylord company loves us. We order a lot from them for their acid-free products because if you bring something in to us, we really do want to preserve it to the best of our capability. It may not be perfect. It may not be what the Met could do, but we do try hard to keep it safe and as preserved as we can. With that comes our number one topic of discussion, space. Because a lot of times when you think of museums, you think of just display space. Well, not everything's on display, nor should it be. So it's the behind the scenes space. Where do we go next? What can we do with that? How can we turn this into even more space and still keep the correct temperature, close to the humidities that we need, and make sure that everything is in the best condition it can be in? We do events. We do a Veterans Day ceremony. We do many events throughout the year that are open to the public. That keeps interest going. It keeps the interest flowing into the museum. And we changed. We had a big museum change early this year. I moved around the whole museum and tried something new. Stuff is there that's always been there. And what's interesting, if you are a person coming from a small museum, what was really interesting is our president walked through and commented on 2 items that had been on display the entire time. Like they'd been there since I started. And I'm like, they were there the whole time, but just refreshing things, bringing new things out. I talked to a friend who collects Todd Cave He collects, he's my number one collector. We have nothing on his collection. He's amazing. And he always, what do you want this for? He loves giving it. He loves sharing it. So if you follow retro work and I put in Saturday night show and tell, that is not my stuff. So if you come to my house looking for it, I do not. It's all his things that I put on display. And he always just says to me, like, what is this for? Who's interested in this? Well, after you get past those 4 topics that we talked about earlier, the Civil War, there's interest. There's always going to be interest there. The bridges, the trains and the canals, and the family things. It's our job to show people what they can be interested in. That's the glory of it. It's the glory of putting something out there in a new way to say, hey, I bet you didn't know this, or isn't this interesting? And to promote some conversation. That's the best part of watching a display come to life. When people are standing there having a conversation. When Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock rolls in and I'll just use the quotes, to the old timers come in from town and they see something and they start talking about it. That's when the story of history comes out. It brings that object to life. We had a Victrola when some lady, it wasn't even her grandmother, but just sitting there telling me the story of her grandmother playing a Victrola and seeing the history of her eyes come to life. I don't think I'll ever be able to put that Victrola somewhere else. Just because she made it so real to me with her memories. So that's part of the job. I'm not trying to say I'm that powerful, but hey, we can show you what you can be interested in. Right now, we have a new website up. We also try to stay active on Facebook as much as we can. If you've been there and you're like, hey, things are pretty stagnant, I just gotta constantly remind you that we're all volunteers. We are all volunteers. And when it comes to technology, not everyone likes it on our board. I can say that I'm probably the second to the youngest board member. I used to be the baby. So we said before, and I know you're all looking at that one thing, history is dynamic, it's more than dates, and it's a puzzle, and then I have the COVID virus. I'm not here for any other reason but to tell you that that single event, in my opinion for historic Wrightsville, is what was the catalyst to the change we needed to keep going. In our case, I'm not arguing this for any other thing other than our little tiny case. We had, as everybody else did, we had a problem. We had to figure out how we were going to keep paying bills with nobody coming through the doors and fundraising canceled. We adapted, and our mindset changed so much at that time that when we started to change our fundraising and try new things, or let's put a field trip online. And we did it. And I had 3 times, I had over 70 kids from our school district chimed in looking at artifacts just because it was a virtual field trip. And then those kids come back with their families. Even if it's just one time, someone else came back through the door of our museum. It keeps things open. We keep relevant. Our fundraising, when I tried to apply for COVID grants, I couldn't because we met our fundraising goals. I can't meet our fundraising goals and then ask for more just so I can buy gloves, masks, and sanitizer. I can give a 20 for that. So COVID did help us and it changed us. For whatever else, so if you're rolling your eyes and like screaming outrage, you can do that outside. But for our story right now, COVID changed us and it helped us become more resilient and adaptive to move forward. Oops. So our future, our first thing is we get out there. We try so hard. We really do. Can we attend everything we're invited to? Nope. But every little time it's worth it. Even those days where it's hot and muggy and the Revs have something and they want us to show up and you're sweating and glistening because you're carrying all your stuff across that parking lot. And you're wondering, why am I here in the middle of York City promoting Wrightsville history? And then those faces come and they start playing the games and they start asking questions. It kicks in. So even those smaller events for us are well worth it. We're getting out there. We try to connect in every way possible. we try to connect. And I'm more tech savvy than most on our board. And we're just constantly looking at new ways to get the word out. Haven't quite figured out what I can TikTok that's that interesting yet for me. But maybe if somebody else wants to do that for us, I'll let them go ahead with that. I'll stick with my wheelhouse there. So other future events. We are excited for this Susquehanna Discovery Center. That too will provide change for us. Is there nervousness for this amongst us? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, as we take part in things, we learn more about what's happening. We try to stay as involved as we can. If you're thinking, well, what would you be afraid of? Well, some of our history and what we want to show is going to be combined. And we have to stop and think, can we compete with that level, or do we change what we do to stay relevant? Because sometimes the David and Goliath story doesn't always go the way we've heard it. And that was scary at first. And I think I remember bringing the question up, and it was scary at first, especially when you're a board member leading things forward. And there's a little bit of panic there, like, oh man, they're gonna talk about the Civil War. We have this diorama, how can we boost this up? But no, how do we embrace it? You know, we did our current exhibit right now is artists and artwork of Wrightsville. So if you are a Wrightsville artist or the artwork was about Wrightsville, we put it in. It wasn't to compete with what's coming. It was because honestly, once that's there, I'm not doing that again. You know, so pulling all of the artwork out and then talking to Ralph Evans, who's heavily involved, you know, we sat and had some great conversations about what the direction could look like for a smaller museum, and then my anxiety can go down. So we are very excited for that in our backyard. But we're going to have to change. We're going to have to do some things. We're going to have to maybe change some focus, look toward it. We still will always have something about the Civil War there, but it might not be one of our number one things anymore. Second thing, the Mount Pisgah Cemetery, the renovation of that. We are very excited to be a part of that. I was sort of very new to that. I was at one meeting. Wrightsville has an African American cemetery. It deserves to be preserved and restored. It's a beautiful church. There's a beautiful cemetery. Then every name tells a story. Could we do that on our own at Historic Wrightsville? We couldn't. So when we get to connect with other organizations, we give what we can. That's what we can do. We give what we can. And it's keeping us, if anything, it's keeping us relevant. It's keeping us in the mix of things. So, there's more. Collections management. I talked about how we archive things and how we do things. What's our next step? In my opinion, the next step is we need to get back through everything. And in that system, we need to start typing in keywords. I was just talking about something tonight. We might stick something in the business file and say it's Huntsberger store because that's what it is. But when we look at the picture, we might see advertising for something else in town, or the person standing there that we haven't quite referenced in the picture yet. So we need to clean that. We need to revisit that. The other thing that I'm sort of like, every now and again I get these like the dog with a bone kind of things. We spend a lot of time putting things away appropriately. But what happens if something bad happens? Like fire damage or water damage. So we were good stewards to those pieces. So our next step is we need to digitize it. Because it's one thing to lose the object. That's sad. It's a crime if I lose the information. Because there are objects in that museum. However, like there's one tiny slip of paper that looks about the size of a fortune cookie fortune that tells us that at one time there was a toy company in Wrightsville. That's the only piece of paper I've ever seen. And it came out of my first job from Lisa was taking a giant bag of stuff that was in the Washington House's attic, 2 of them, and go through it. Well, the one bag, I did what I could, but after the scent from mice being in the bag got to me too much. We decided, I'm like, do I have to? And she's like, do what you can. It wasn't a torture thing, it was just, I do it. And it was literally, it just fell out on the table. So amongst 300 other receipts of the same company, and a lot of your companies like Lafine, some of the Lafine companies, we had receipts from that over time, was this tiny little piece of paper. So that piece of paper, just even posting at Retro York gives a digital footprint. So and that's why I'm like, we need to share more at Retro York, because that becomes a quick search. Whatever I say about that, and my caption is what comes up on Retro York, and we have the digital footprint, and that's preserved there. So that's a personal goal. Our next thing is new displays. How do we keep people coming in? I wonder, because I really do wonder. I don't know what's next. I'll know by Christmas. That's how my brain works. We'll talk about it a little bit before then. So what I'd like you to do is your last time I promise it's the last time you're standing up. Oh, sorry, I can typo. Imagine that. Stand up. That's what happens when you type that slide like before you get in the door. Would you stand up and find a friend and tell them one thing you can take away from tonight's conversation? Go ahead.
Wow.
Stand up and walk just the legs.
More than just bridges, they're more. Small but mighty organization. I'm trying, they're trying.
I've heard of Westphalia, but I didn't realize. I know it was a weird scale too.
Discussing who do that.
For about 30 minutes.
Yeah. Tonight,
Yeah, it was.
I never did until that day.
Finish up this conversation. And that.
York County in my family too, was a lot of my relatives.
oh, God, no.
Later generation.
Yeah.
Introduce people to our school.
Yeah, there are so many.
I know. And then.
We have any comments? Do we have any comments on Facebook?
We're not on Facebook.
Or I'm sorry, sorry, fine.
No.
Okay,
I'll
so
double
we can
check.
find our spots. I promise I only have a few things here. Did anyone want to share a takeaway? Anybody? Go ahead.
I think one of the things that captured my my thoughts is your online tour or online going out and just presenting a history tour of the area online and invite people in. Did you charge for that?
No, that was just during COVID. We had just some field trips because field trips were canceled. And when you have to cancel field trips for kindergartners, that's not fun.
Yeah.
And that's something else that we think of, like, how can we keep things relevant? I will tell you that my personal number one barrier in life is I don't have enough time to do everything I want to. I really don't. I mean, I really don't. I'm like, do I want to get rid of the dogs and the cats and the pigs? No. Like I really don't have enough time to do everything I want to, and that is something I've thought about. And who knows what retirement will bring me? Maybe retirement. Yeah, well, I mean, maybe retirement isn't traveling. Maybe retirement is what? No, not yet. I'm thinking about it though. I get great. I'm getting great. Yeah, no. So anyway, listening, I'm not retiring. Don't call my mom. Happens. Anybody else have a takeaway they'd like to share?
We thought it was interesting that COVID was the catalyst to really help you guys evolve and thrive.
The other big thing I will tell you about COVID, and this wouldn't have happened without COVID. I said that Indiana Jones picture I chuckled at. My Indiana Jones moment without the danger. I went in one day just because nobody knew what was happening. I was off work. No, hey, we didn't have a plan yet. They didn't know how we were going to teach. So I went to the museum and we were all sort of there, bored, staying away from each other because we didn't have all the guidance. And I really wanted to find a better looking picture of Susanna Wright Houston. Not this is our Susanna Wright Houston, not Columbia. The Wright family likes the same names. We had this great picture of her husband. He looks like the prince from Beauty and the Beast. And then we have with a picture of her, and I can say she looks about as old Mother Hubbard as you can get. And I was like, maybe it'll be on there. And I just typed in Susanna Wright Houston. And it's like, something's on eBay. So I was like, oh, what's on eBay? Well, somebody in Philadelphia found the Wright family Bible in a box sale in Massachusetts. And it was on eBay with 17 pages of genealogy. I've never called Lisa so fast in my life, and I've never raised that much money and that much time to get that. So there was another, I have to say, of all the things that drove me crazy, we got the Bible. We got the Bible. So that was a good thing for us. Any other takeaways?
Well, one of the things you talked about it being a transportation hub, but because it was a transportation hub, it was also a funnel for Western movement from the Eastern colonies into the center of the United States. Because that's how my family got to York County. Philadelphia, Lancaster, Wrightsville, Red Line.
Gateway to the West. When my first presentation at Historic Wrightsville was on the Wright family. And when we think of westward expansion, because of our 9th grade history books, I just think of the Mississippi River. I mean, that's when you think of westward expansion, the Wild West, the Mississippi River. Well, crossing the Susquehanna wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And there's a great copy of a painting. A Russian painter did a scene at Wright's Ferry. And there's some lady there. She's got a parasol on the kid. She's in this little hollowed out ferry. And these soldiers are hanging out there. It is such a romanticized version because all other accounts tell you that it was not a safe thing. The Susquehanna River, I think the word was cranky. It was a cranky river. It was a cranky river.
And it was wide at that spot.
Yes, wider that spot. Anyone else? Well, if you've never visited us, we would love to have the company. We're Sundays 1 to 4, Wednesdays 11 to 2. If you are looking for something in particular, it's best to call and make an appointment. Because if I have somebody there and you want to see something that's not on display, I can't promise you that you're not going to wait till that tour or two's over for me to get that. So if you really want something, just give us a call. We can also do tours by appointment. And I know we didn't talk, but are there any questions? Does anyone have any questions?
Let's give him a round of applause for us too.
Do you have enough room for all this stuff that you have?
No.
I know the feeling, that's why I asked the
No.
question.
No, and we talk about that constantly. We talk about that, and it's to the point where do we have to start? And we're talking about this. We just Monday at a meeting talking about do we have to revise our guidelines for what we accept because we don't have the space for it, and because to be the caretaker that we want to be, and that even includes sometimes getting. One of our bigger issues right now is textiles. What do you do with textiles? How do you preserve it? How do you keep them safe? What could they be bringing into your museum? Because we do know that there are certain bugs you don't want in there. And we do everything in our power to prevent that from happening. So we're in the process of right now of revising how we acquire things and what that could look like. And it's not because we don't want. It's because either A, we might not have space, or B, we might not be able to treat it the way it needs to be treated.
Do you accept a lot of research material that people can use? I'm from Red Lion Historical Society, and At the beginning, we collected books and that was fine. Then people said, oh, you got books. Here are my family photographs. Here's my family history. Here's wills. Well, the wills and that kind of thing are here, and at the county archive. So we've kind of shied away from taking anything that relates specifically to family research or historical research related to how things have changed. And that's a difficult thing to tell people.
We have a few genealogies.
Yeah.
We still take them. I mean, we still do because of a lot of what we typically find in the photo albums is looking in the background. Like when you first thing you look at in a picture is you're looking at, oh, there's Aunt Hilda. And then you're like, oh, Aunt Hilda's standing in front of Abel's store. That's this Abel's store. And one of the bigger pictures I got of time period, the older time periods, is I'm dying to find a picture of what Heppenstall's store looked like from the front. We see it from the back, but never from the front. So we do collect and genealogies. Usually the only research we get is the bridge. I think we have some research papers on the bridge.
The other thing I always stress to people who have photographs that they want to give us, please make sure they're labeled, who's on the cotton picking picture. I get crazy when I go to an antique place and I see a box of photographs, beautiful photographs, no history.
And then through this, like I'm learning the hard way from eBay that there was another Wrightsville in Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
And there is a Wrightsville, as far as I can find, it's not on a current map. On the western side of the state, there was another Wrightsville in Pennsylvania. So I have to watch because some of the pictures and postcards that pop up from Wrightsville, PA are not out of Wrightsville, PA. Now, luckily, I have my friend Todd, as I said, he's like, well, that time, it would have been this time, the 6 over 9 windows or 9 over 6s, and he knows all that stuff, and I appreciate it. I can't comprehend it all. After the first hour and a half, I start to I love hearing it, but I'm not going to remember it unless something happens for it to pop up.
When people give us things, a lot of times it's the family collection and they may have overlapped areas. And we usually try and route the things that belong to Wrightsville and the things that belong to Hallam. And, we do that all the time.
And that's one of the things we're working on right now, especially with some of this, with a space constraint.
Yeah.
So Long Level for most people is Wrightsville.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if you say Long Level, Pennsylvania, it's in Wrightsville because the mailing address is Wrightsville, so it's Craley's. But that's actually Lower Windsor. And so as we're looking at some of our things, it's the time to say, is it the best thing to do is to give this to Long Level or Lower Windsor or Hallam, and to keep those doors open because Eastern Europe does have three small history groups in that little bit of an area. And they are, I don't mean this in any way, we're very territorial. We have our territories, because of health needs.
Probably the bill.
Yes. All right, well, thank you very much, and like I said, come visit us, and I'll be here at the end, so.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeremy. That was fascinating. I love the engagement and how you got us to share and talk. One of the biggest takeaways that I have is that we do not have to be in competition with one another. The amount of interest in history is not finite, and the more that we can get people engaged and reading all of our articles and going all to our sites, I think it shows that we can be way more collaborative in nature. When Dami and I make our podcasts, we are trying to usually uplift other people's stories, give people, we cite people. We're working with Pete Mealy, who is here with the Susquehanna Area National
Heritage
Area. Thank you, Pete. And so we're doing a podcast with him just at the end of June to uplift the Mifflin House and all the good work that they're doing there. So Jeremy, thank you for talking about Wrightsville, and hopefully more people can go out and visit and we can share and cross collaborate and work together because York County, the way that we can all work together, I think is going to uplift it all. So now that Jeremy has concluded, we're going to move on to our roundtable segment. And this is an opportunity for us to come up to the mic and share what we're working on. So earlier, before we got started, I was talking with Rebecca Anstein, and she is, of course, always into something. She always stays busy. So Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the mic so everyone can hear you online. Here she comes, everybody. And Tina Charles is going to join her as well.
I'm being drugged against.
No pressure.
Yeah, I think that me. Where's my grammar? I don't know.
I just hit your computer too.
Tina and I have both been involved with Wrightsville and Mount Pisgah Cemetery. And we'll be there again for Riverfest. But what we have done is put together a list of the people who are buried there and what their history background is. We are talking about, aren't we? Putting together a booklet on the veterans, not just from the Civil War, but from all the wars that are buried in Mount Pisgah, because recently Tina found and did research on Anna Bybee, who was a member of the, and I always get the numbers mixed up, 688, and she is buried in Mount Pisgah. So if anyone has seen that movie, then when you are looking at that movie, you're looking at someone who is buried in York County. What else are we up to? Trinity AME down in Delta. I keep getting lost. That's why she showed me everywhere. We're working with the group down there to help preserve their church history, finding out who the ministers were, who's buried in the cemetery, and just how that church grew all along. One of the most interesting things I found when Jeremy talked about the Susquehanna Tidewater Canal, a lot of the families from Lower York County worked on that canal and wound up in Wrightsville living there. And when you go into their Civil War pensions, one of them actually talked about and named the person that he brought up on the boat and brought him into Wrightsville so that he could have his freedom. So there's all kinds of stories that you can trace back, and we're working on the stories.
Is Trinity having its, I think it's 125th anniversary coming up?
I think so.
I think their church, so the church the church that they're in now in Delta is not the original church that was beside this cemetery that's out that way. But it is another one of York's African American cemeteries, York County's African American cemeteries down in southern York County. So super exciting, and I think Becky said that one of the people buried at that cemetery direct tie to the Underground Railroad. Yeah, so lots of interesting stories, but that's what we've been up to.
Well, thank you guys for coming up. And I think they echo the same thing that Jeremy said about the stories, and it's more than just dead guys and dates, right? It is about the people behind it, and it makes it humanizes the past, and we can all relate. Actually, it was just last week, I was out mountain biking with one of my friends. I really love our parks around the area, and we started talking about caves. And he ended up sending me an email and said, did you know there was a cave right here in York County? Of course, the article was written by our own Stephen Smith. So Stephen is always busy. He's written more than 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 articles up to this point. Stephen, do you want to come up and share what you're working on?
Actually, I made a resolution at the beginning of the year to cut back on helping people, so I could do my own work. That lasted about 2 weeks. I've actually been reinvigorated in working with my Smith family history, which I've done a lot of research on. This is before newspapers.com. So I've been finding some neat stories of all my ancestors on various lines through newspapers.com. So I urge you to use that resource. You can get very neat stories to put in your genealogy.
Yeah.
The other things I'm working on, like I said, my goal was to cut back on my talks and, the original goal was to have no more than 5 talks. Well, it is mushroomed to 11. So the one's coming up on June 21st, the National Watch and Clock Collectors Convention at the fairgrounds. And one of the groups that I'm talking to is Stories of York County Clockmakers. And this is the 4th time I've done a talk for them when they have their conventions in York and Lancaster. July 8th, I'm speaking on Springersbury History Night. That's open to the public at 7 o'clock on July 8th in the community room in Springersbury. I'll be talking on barns of Springersbury. So I'm basically sharing stories of various barns in Springersbury. Hopefully we'll have a big crowd for that. Last one we did, we had 97 at when I talked on motels and hotels of Springersbury. So I'm contemplating having a matinee section and an evening section, since we're filling up the room, which is good. And then August 16th, here at the History Center, I'll be one of the panelists on World War II briefings for the anniversary of VJ Day. That'll be 3 panelists at that. I have 1 panelist section that I'll be talking about the connections, York County connections to the Manhattan Project. So that's coming up. And then September 20th, I'll be doing my Yorkshire History Walk again, which is the 4th time I'm doing it. We gather groups from far and wide. They're actually coming in from different states now, since they grew up in that area and they want to go through this talk. So that'll be the 4th time I do that. And we meet on this one, Saturday, September the 20th at 3 o'clock at the elementary school. That's where it starts, and we weave around through the Yorkshire neighborhood, sharing stories of it. And that'll be a fun time. So those are the next ones coming up. I'll do the various October and November ones next time.
Thank you, Stephen. Always staying busy. And Stephen was an engineer back before he became, gosh, a full-time historian. So that's why I enjoy reading most of his articles, is he has just that scientific mind that I very much appreciate. Next, I'd like to invite my dear friend Pete up to talk about what's going on with the Mifflin House, which is very exciting and going to be a huge treasure for York County.
At first I said I wasn't working on any scholarship York history related. I wrote out, no, I don't want to come out. But Jamie texted me and he wanted to come up, and I said, at first I said no, and then I said, yeah, why not? So we opened the Mifflin House for the first time just under 2 weeks ago. May 24th, we opened to the public for the first time. We welcomed 30 visitors that first Saturday and 32 visitors last Saturday. So there is a lot of interest, and we're really happy that we were able to get the house open. We have a grounds tour, a self-guided grounds tour. We can't go have visitors in the barn yet because there's a lot of tripping hazards and the lighting is not good, but we did get a certificate of occupancy on the house, which was really exciting. And we're sharing the stories of the Underground Railroad in York County, Lancaster County, and specifically, of course, focused on the Mifflin Farm. And I was really happy to hear, because I have been telling people that Wrightsville was a cultural and commercial crossroads, and so that was seconded this evening. So I was happy that I'm not spreading false information, but it's also a crossroads of courage, of conscience, of collaboration and conflict. And that's how we are framing the story of the Mifflins and the freedom seekers that are seeking refuge within the walls of the home. One of the interesting insights that we've had as we've been working to develop these tours is that if you had said the words Underground Railroad to Jonathan and Susanna Mifflin, they would not have known what you were talking about. So all of the great work that has been done before I even knew about this project to save this Underground Railroad site it's just interesting to think about how that term comes after the Mifflins are active, and it just kind of, it really sort of speaks to the kinship and religious and conscience-based networks and collaboration that the Mifflins and people like Robert Loney and Stephen Smith and Daniel Gibbons in Lancaster County all kind of had before there was a real organized network. So that's one of the stories that we're elevating as well. All of you are invited on June 20th. It's a Friday evening. 2 weeks from tomorrow is our annual summer soiree event. But this year is special because it's the first one we're doing out at the farm. So we will have house tours. We will have the barn doors open so you can see inside. But what's really cool is we have a hot air balloon that's been sponsored by Ephrata National Bank. And so it's going to be tethered. It's only going to go up about 30, 40, 50 feet. But you will be able to get a bird's eye view of the Mifflin farm. And probably, I don't see why not, see the river from the property. So tickets are still available. Catering by 2 peas in a pot from here in York. And we do hope that you'll join us for that event. There's more information on our website. And we will continue to be open on Saturdays between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Until the end of October. If there's a lot of interest, we might keep going, but there's no heat in the house. So October is probably going to be the cutoff. But we'd love to have you free of charge, and we're always happy to talk. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. And if you didn't know it either, they down at the Zimmerman Center do boat tours.
Oh yeah, has anybody been on the boat?
I just did the boat.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, this is apparently old news because you've all done it, but they do boat tours on the weekends, and it's a 1912 wooden electric boat. And for an hour, you get this glorious tour of the river. You go up and down, and you get a history lesson. And it is just a beautiful asset that we have here on the river. I think we take for granted that we have an amazing just water source right there. All right, I'd like to open it up. Who else wants to come up and chat about what you're working on? I'm looking at June, hoping she'll come up.
Thanks, Jamie. I wasn't prepared for this. Actually, I'm getting back to doing blogs also. I've done like over 1,000, I forget how many, over the years. And also I used to do a column for York Daily Record, York Sunday News when they still had some local columnists. But I am and I'm concentrating some more on my research on campus security. And I hope to be sharing that on the blog. Mine is Universal York. It's put it there at yorkblog.com. Also Steve was talking about some of the programs. I thought, well, tomorrow I'm doing one at the for Spirit Trust in Kelly Drive, the Lutheran Home, on William Wagner, and I hadn't spoken on him for a while. And I thought, gee, I've got to get out more with some of these because, again, I do a lot of programs, but they slowed down during the pandemic, but now people are really looking for speakers again. So, and also there's some anniversaries coming up. The 50th anniversary of the South Central Pennsylvania Genealogical Society. I think it's September 20th. They're going to have a program here at the History Center, even with free food. Just have to register before. And I'll be talking then. I'm a librarian at York County History Center. For those of you that don't know that, and I've spent lots of years working with the South Central Pennsylvania Genealogical Society, and they've really been a tremendous help to the York County History Center, formerly York County Heritage Trust, and formerly the Historical Society of York County. And also this fall, there's the Pennsylvania Historical Association, October uh, 9th through 11th. Yeah, Jamie, I think is you're giving a paper, so I'm going to be on a panel about camp security, our Revolutionary War prisoner of war camp, and Adam Bentz, our director of library and archives here, is very involved with that, and they have a tremendous amount of papers. It's going to be held here. And it's there's really a lot of history that you can come and learn about there. So that's all I can think of right now. Thank you.
Dude, thanks for that plug. Yeah, the Pennsylvania Historical Association, Pete and I are both board members as well as Adam, and we're bringing the annual conference here to York County. It's going to be at Yorktown. The History Center is going to host a lot of programs here, but October 9th through 11th, please be on the lookout. We'd love to have you there attending. I'm just so excited to have that here in York County with some local tourists. We do have time for a couple more speakers if you'd like to come up and share what you're working on. Yeah.
Howdy, I'm Tom Yingling with Cadorus Valley Area Historical Society. We're located in Jefferson, and we cover 5 townships, which is Cadorus, North Cadorus, Heidelberg, Manheim, and Springfield townships. But anyhow, I could really relate to some of the small museum issues that there are things that were going on with tonight's presentation. But we got a couple things going on here. This coming Sunday, we're having our monthly open to the public. We're open from 1 to 3, and it'll be the last presentation for a while of a quilt that we acquired. That was occurred back in February. That was a last minute thing, came up for auction, has 712 names. It was made by a youth group in Jefferson, and they stitched 712 names on this. And this is one of these things that cost a lot of money for this thing, but we came up with the money quickly. Matter of fact, we bought the thing before we came up with all the money. But so it was pretty interesting. But nevertheless, it's one of those artifacts that I found that people really relate to. Because it's 1913, people say, hey, there's my great grandparents, there's my grandparents. And when you have 30 people in a room just saying, hey, I know this person, that person, there was a lot of connection going on there. So it's not too often you get that level of connection with an artifact. From what I've seen. So anyhow, we're going to let it rest for a little bit. We're going to do some other things for preservation purposes with it. We'll be putting another signature quilt up that only has 25 on. I call it the Snyder quilt from Manheim Township, but we'll be having that on display. But that's going on. The end of July, we're doing, this is a joint thing with we call it the Southwest York County Historic Consortium. And it's 7 historical societies in the southwest corner of York County. We're doing a bus tour. Scott Mingus is heading up. Basically, it's a post Battle of Hanover tour, and just covering different historic sites. We're stopping at all the museums in the area. So it's sort of kind of bringing recognition to the small museums in our area. And so that's going on. And the other last thing that I'll talk about is Richard Resch and I were put together another consortium of for mill research, and basically we're going to be taking a look at, or we've already started taking a look at the whole list that Grant Bowden put together from 1940 through about 1980. That whole list and all his photographs are here at the Historical Society here, but there's missing information. There's missing mills. We have he did an incredible job. But like a lot of things, it's only as good as the information he got in. So there were mistakes made in the process. So we're trying to get people from the area that they're live in, that they're familiar with, to look at the mills in their area and relook at the information that's in there, bring forth any new information. So if you're interested in working with that, it's not a forever, at least we're hoping it's not a forever project, but it's something that will probably last a couple of years, but where you can focus on, mills that you might be interested in. Maybe you're just interested in one mill, fine. Research it and bring the information to us. So, and we'll tell you what information we're looking at, and the Historical Society here will be the keeper of that information. So with that, I thank you.
Tom, you have a strong email presence. How can people sign up for your email blasts?
Well, how can they? Well, I guess we have a newsletter that the Historical Society puts out, but you have to be a member for that. And so there's, I guess for email, it's $15 a year membership. We do Facebook, of course, that's freebie. I really don't put anything out with email type stuff as far as, informational type thing. But I mean, I do announcements and that kind of thing,
Blasts, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
so.
Great, thank you, Tom.
But you can talk to me and I'll get you an email.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else? Di? When I'm not talking about Newbury Township history or doing hometown history with Jamie, I reenact the Civil War. And I am booked for June, July, August, October, and November for speaking gigs, but I'm looking for more. I give presentations on women that were soldiers during the Civil War. A lot of people don't know that there was up to 400 to 1,000 women that dressed up as soldiers and infiltrated the army during the Civil War. I also give talks about the Daughters of Charity Nuns that came up from Emmitsburg and spent some time in Gettysburg after the Battle of Gettysburg and helped nurse the soldiers. There's a church, stained glass windows, St. Francis Xavier in Gettysburg that was dedicated to them. And then I also give a presentation just about women in general and their roles during the Civil War. So I also give a presentation about the 87th PA because they were recruited historically out of York County. So if you're a historical society, if you're a senior center, any auxiliary group that you're a part of, if they're looking for some Civil War presentations, keep me in mind. Thank you. Okay, I think we might have time for one more. Nicole?
I just wanted to speak for someone at home named Ashley Bryan and also Dennis Ness that couldn't be here tonight. They're both writers working on Revolutionary War era topics. Ashley's working on a fiction piece and Dennis is working on a piece about the militia here in York in 1775.
Awesome, thank you, Nicole. So we meet, like I said, quarterly, so hopefully we will see you back here in September. We meet the first Thursday of the month, so thank you everyone for joining us.
Still do it. Yeah.